20 to 30-mile-per-hour gusts are keeping wind alerts active, adding to the heavy rain. And also there's a rip current risk, too. I'm not sure you're thinking about swimming, but don't, because we do have that high rip current risk as well, fueling some of the dangerous conditions along the coast. We're going to be looking at issues here today with the rain coming down, but also at the time of high tide, because that's when we're going to be dealing with the exceptionally high tides. New moon was yesterday here, and that can just exacerbate the flooding. We see it time and time again. We got a king tide situation. So for us in West Palm Beach, that's about 9:30-ish morning and night. We'll be dealing with that in a couple of hours on either side of it. Some of those flood-prone areas, when you have the heavy rain come down, it could be flooded. Now, we've got West Palm Beach with showers and wind all day long. It's going to keep our temperatures down, but look, we don't get a break. You can see those winds 25, 30, even 35 miles per hour. The flood alerts are up. Flood watches are posted here. These go through tomorrow. And we've got South Florida and then up the coast here through Central Florida. It really is a coastal concern here. A lot of that moisture is going to be focused there as we see that onshore flow, that east wind bringing in the moisture and giving us that heavy rain potential. So we've got that risk of flash flooding here in South Florida. This goes through tomorrow morning. West Palm, South Fort Lauderdale, right in at Miami Gardens, right in the middle of it as well. But it continues again Thursday into Friday. We've got an area that's focused all the way up here, all the way up to almost the first coast. So watching concerns out there for heavy rainfall. The other concern is on the coast itself. And again, around the times of high tide, we've got those coastal flooding issues about an hour or two on either side of high tide. It's about 9:30 this morning, about 10 o'clock tomorrow. I mean, it fluctuates a little bit depending on where you are on the coast. But just to give you a sense of that timing, we've got here a number of areas that we have to keep an eye on. And the rainfall itself could be quite heavy, 3 to 5 inches of rain. Locally, 8 inches of rain is possible. The significant rain already causing problems this morning in South Florida. WTVJ reporter Julia Bagg has a closer look at the flooding in Oakland Park, which is just north of Fort Lauderdale. So here's a look at those average rainfall amounts. Again, November, the month where we ease into it. December, January, February, those are our wet months. Even March is usually, one of the months where we're not surprised to still get into the rain. And so not, again, surprising that we are in this rainy pattern right now in November. It makes sense. Now, drought-wise, last year was just such a great year for us here. We didn't get any rain. We had no rain. Such a late start to the wet season. January, firmly entrenched in drought. But then we go to July, only 5%. And now, 0% drought. That's amazing, right? Now, as we look ahead, it's important that we keep getting the rain, keep those reservoirs filled, keep building up the snowpack, too, as it gets colder out there. And we'll see a little of both in the next several days. Rainfall amounts 1 to 2 inches, mainly along the coast is where we'll have excuse me, the most persistent moisture. And then when it comes to snowfall, it's going to be pretty high elevation snow. So not looking at a significant low elevation event for us here. We still have multiple areas of low pressure spinning just off the coast, but that is helping to throw moisture, which is why right on the coast we're going to see some of the bigger rainfall totals, Greg.
That's right. And you know what? Things
in November, we've been stuck in storm after storm after storm, all giving us really big amounts of snow here. And that's part of it, too. It's not just we're getting a couple of inches. Each bout seems to bring us 8 or 9 inches of snowfall. It's been adding up. We're more than 38 inches of snowfall, or 37 inches of snowfall here. Again, 38 would get us to that record for the month. This is about 3 times what we would typically have, a little more than 3 times typically have at this point in the season. So it's been a big one. 37.9, 38.8 is what the record is to beat, set back in 1994. Seems like we will easily break that, maybe by tomorrow, because we've got more snow coming our way. Look at the forecast. We have it piling up here, at least 8 to 12 inches, perhaps 12 to 18. You go up in elevation, and here that does make a difference in Alaska. But this is where the cold air has been, and this is where the storms have been tracking right here, right across the Gulf of Alaska, one after another here. They come out into the northern Pacific here, and they've been throwing some moisture all the way down along the west coast of the lower 48, but they make a stop here with the snowfall. It has been snowing so much here. We had nearly a week straight of snow here. Got a little bit yesterday, but we'll be looking at some more to come in, or a little bit Monday, a little bit more to come in. Now, we have winter storm warnings that are up and some winter weather advisories that have been posted for the area. Here's a look at what's to come over the next 24 hours. More snow. Some rain going down through the peninsula, but mainly it is going to be snowfall moving on through in the next 24 to 36 hours, Greg. And yet we're talking about this big snow here, and we're still talking about the tropics.
Isn't that weird? A few days is key because it is going to get colder, I think, beginning the weekend and then the next week as well.
Yeah, which, you kind of expect.
You got to expect it.
That would be less of a surprise than what we're getting out there right now.
Exactly.
Well, we're watching, of course, Florida, too. A lot of rain yesterday.
A lot of rain, and a lot of it came, I think, last night, too, and a lot of it very quickly. We saw a lot of flooding, up to 6 to 7 inches plus in some locations in just about a 6-hour period. So a lot of tropical moisture involved in it, and that led to all of the flooding concerns we saw.
It's the rainfall rates that always get us.
It's the rates. That's so true.
I mean, 6 inches of rain, even over a day, might be better than in 2 hours.
Yeah, 6 inches of rain in a day, Florida can handle.
Right.
With the soils and the other things, but all happening at once is real trouble.
Yeah, so that's what we want to look at, the possibility of for today. We've got that chance of rainfall again. Could it be another 6 inches? It's possible. I mean, we've got 3 to 5 here in a large zone stretching from Port St. Lucie, including Fort Lauderdale, Miami, all the way down to the Northern Keys. We could get into some of that big rain, but pretty widespread. There's about 1 to 2 or even 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. So it's a very rainy pattern. We still are watching that easterly flow, bringing in all the moisture, but at the same time we have all this activity happening over in the Gulf of Mexico, and that rain as well is affecting us here in Florida, especially South Florida right now. So there's a pretty rainy stretch right across the just north of Alligator Alley down there. Winds are also gusty. I mean, it kind of feels like a tropical storm, doesn't it? It's been very persistently windy, which I think is what's really getting you. Winds right now, the buoys are running about 30, 40 plus miles per hour, but even onshore, you know, I've been watching in the East Coast, our winds in West Palm Beach have been gusting 30, 35 miles per hour, sustained, you know, not too far away from that. So that pattern is not going to change. For now, it's been the low over in the Gulf of Mexico that's been the big story, but we're going to see this new low develop here just off the coast. This is the one that we're keeping an eye on out here. This will just help enhance the rainfall potential, give us a chance of even heavier amounts perhaps. Could it develop into something tropical? Tiny chance, 10% chance here. And you know what? It's actually moving away from land here. We're not really concerned about that in itself here being a risk to us in Florida per se. You can see the zone. But it is going to be a feature, the low pressure itself, no matter what shape it takes, in helping it stay rainy there in southeastern Florida, northern Bahamas. Definitely in for a rainy next 36 hours at least here, maybe even 48 hours. Rainfall will be heavy at times. Still watching up into the Florida Panhandle as well. But a lot of the focus will be on central and south Florida into your tomorrow as we see rain and around the time of high tide, flooding concerns there with those king tide issues. All right, Greg, what happens to this? Does it go up the East Coast?
It does.
America Recycles Day. And we're going to bring in Toy Insider Editor-in-Chief Marissa Silva. Helps children explore the world, learn countries, cultures, wildlife, and even science without even ever having to hit the road or hop on an airplane.
How cool is that? You know what? We have another toy here that helps keep children occupied on the go while helping them unleash creativity with friends from the outdoors. Can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, so the next
weather, or you can change the weather.
Yeah, it's a flight simulator.
Yeah,
That's
there
awesome.
sure is.
It's very cool. How about T-Rex? T-Rex, the most famous and dangerous dinosaur to have walked the earth 65 minutes. Really cool. I love these toys.
Now, I'm very curious about what's coming up next because it looks like I saw a little Rubik's Cube action going on.
You did, but this is not your
Fantastic. Marissa, thank you so much. Marissa Silver's editor-in-chief of Toy Insider. Appreciate your time today and some good ideas. Kids are starting to put the list together. Parents are looking for ideas. And I love the scientific educational ones. That was always my go-to.
I have my list out there for Santa.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what it is, but it's there. I mean, you can't start too early, can you?
You can't. Now I love how the kids send you links of things that they want, which is actually quite useful. Well, sustainability.
Yeah. Find another way.
Yeah.
Tricky.
We'll keep your responses coming.
If it's going to open up. And then you have volcano on top of that. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they have warning, but still doesn't make it easier knowing what they could potentially lose. We want to talk travel conditions and talk about some places where we could have some slower travel, where you need to slow down, where you may need to avoid roadways because of flooding, and that's South Florida.
Thankfully, no volcanoes here, but we do have an atmosphere that is going to bring a lot of rainfall and some thunderstorms across the region. Really, as Jen was mentioning, all the way from the Keys through parts of the Panhandle. This is really the entire state.
And it's probably going to be mainly I-10 southward, a little bit of South Alabama, South Georgia, but I-20, I mean, you might get a few showers, but probably not enough to cause travel issues.
No, I don't think so. I think you're right. And once you get north of Atlanta, especially today, we're looking pretty good. So that's good news there. But it is going to be a very busy week when it comes to travel.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is the busiest time.
You're going to start to see a pickup here. I mean, definitely by Friday, maybe even by tomorrow. 49.1 million people out there traveling by car. That's a 1.7 increase from last year. And only 2005 and 2019 actually had more. traveling. So it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, and the gas prices nationally are well above average in the West, but well below average in the Southeast. So depending on where you go, it's going to hit your pocketbook differently.
$2.64 is what I paid yesterday to fill up.
That's lower.
That's really low.
And we're in the Southeast here. I noticed that too. I was under $3. I was like, wow, where'd this come from?
We had showed this map a few days ago. I was like a little nervous when I went to fill up my tank, but it wasn't too bad. All right, by train or by plane, we've got 4.7 million people traveling. It's a 6.6 increase from last year, and that's the most since 2005.
And you know what? I just forgot that next week is actually Thanksgiving. And yesterday after the show, I was like, oh, that's right. Next week is Thanksgiving. It's all coming so fast. Be prepared. We got your travel forecast out here for you on Friday. Basically west of the Mississippi, the weather certainly on Friday is going to be absolutely fine. No problems.
Yeah. The Wall Street Journal puts out their list of top airports, and number one this year is Phoenix.
Really?
Harbor. Yeah.
Very nice.
And the weather has to play a role, because they have so much on-time travel. The weather is, really helping. Northeast, these airports at the bottom of the list, but we've got the toughest weather.
Yeah, toughest weather, especially in parts of the Great Lakes in Northeast on Friday, and probably into Saturday as well. There you can see in the Northeast corner. So Boston, for example, maybe even New York and some of the areas locally may have some weather issues to deal with.
Phoenix does have some rain.
Hey, for once.
For once, by the time we get to Saturday.
Right. And you can plan your trips to the TWC Street. It was batteries. Right? I guess.
And you can take them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can take them to like a electronics store.
There seems like an opportunity to get this message straight, doesn't it? This is a really good opportunity, I think.
Well, you can go to X and Threads, send us your comments, and we will share them on the show. So keep them coming. Let's get into the track. We're not sure yet. All right, well, welcome back, everyone. We are here with you through the mid-morning hours to get you ready for all the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast, of course. And, there's a lot going on. You were talking about Florida getting a lot of rain, and a lot of it came last night. And I think to some of our surprise, maybe some of us knew, but I was caught off guard by how much came so quickly just 12 hours ago.
Yeah, we had really heavy rain. We're in a break right now, you can see, in Miami, and it just came with such a fast rate, and that's caused the flooding. Also issues around, we're not that far from high tide last night when the rain came down, and those caused other problems too because of the king tides going on there. So a lot of problems coming together to cause a bigger problem with flooding. Mike Seidel is actually going to be live in the Fort Lauderdale area starting at about 4 o'clock today. Yeah,
and it's not just the rain too that has caused some issues. We have an east wind along the Florida's east coast, coastal flood advisories, big waves, maybe some minor coastal flooding there. And this is not just a today thing. This forecast goes through tomorrow and then probably even a little bit beyond that.
Yeah, not the only spot that saw flooding. We had some flooding in the New Orleans area with the heavy rain there too. I mean, we've been talking how much about we need rain, but it was too much at once. The big rainfall rates did it. And Bill Withers sings, "Ain't no sunshine when she's gone." Up there piling on in the West Palm Beach area here in Florida this morning. We're going to see those showers pick up. The skies are going to get pretty gloomy if they're not already. And the east wind here already whipping up in our virtual view here in West Palm Beach. 20 to 30 mile per hour gusts are keeping wind alerts active, adding to the heavy rain and rip currents, fueling dangerous conditions along the coast. This kind of scene here today, yet again in West Palm and Fort Lauderdale, down through Davie and Pompano, in places that had some bigger issues yesterday, could again today. The pattern really has not changed. And if anything, it's gotten maybe more rainy. But we have all day long rain in the forecast. And you can see winds are going to be gusting 30, maybe even 35 miles per hour. So that's going to be a concern right through today. We have a flood watch up as well. And that extends not just in South Florida, but all the way up along the Space Coast because of heavy rain concerns. It's a combination of, yes, the heavy rain, but also around the time of high tide, a couple of hours on either side, we could have some flooding concerns because of the king tide. So watching around central, the east coast of Florida, and then down through southeastern Florida, the risk of flooding really likely for you there in southeastern Florida. Also Thursday into Friday morning, though, again, we're going to have another chance of flash flooding concerns as we still see some rain through that area. By Friday, we'll start to see improving weather, but until then, we have to keep an eye out on it. And there is also the coastal flooding concerns here. Coastal flood advisories are up all the way up the first coast, actually all the way up the coast of South Carolina, too. And that's more related to the king tides that we got going on. Now, rainfall amounts 1 to 2 inches, pretty widespread. Lot of rain chances here across really the entire state. The heaviest of rain will probably be in southeastern Florida, where we have 3 to 5 inches of rain with locally higher amounts possible, maybe even 8 inches. We mentioned the drought, and there is some extreme drought over here on the West Coast. coast. Tampa, Sarasota, we're running our driest actually on record in Sarasota and Naples as well. But on the flip side, Fort Lauderdale, with our 100 inches plus of rainfall, it has been our wettest year to date here. And a lot of that rain actually came with that big rain event we had back in April. The significant rain is already causing problems this morning in South Florida, and WTVJ reporter Julia Bagg has a closer look at the flooding in Oakland Park, which is just north of Fort Lauderdale. Maybe not surprisingly, but not every November is that rainy. We kind of ramp up in the month of November, averaging about 2 inches of rain in San Francisco and the Bay Area. But December, January, February, those are really rainy months out there, averaging close to 4 inches actually each. So it's a good time to kind of transition into it. And last year we didn't really get anything in November, even in December. It was January when we really started to get the rain. January 1st, we had a lot of drought across California, a 98% in moderate drought. Then fast forward to July when it was only 5%, and then we had Hurricane Hillary and the moisture from that come up, and now we have 0% in drought. So looking good from that perspective, looking good from a reservoir status perspective. Last year the snowpack left us in good shape as well, and now we're starting off with our rainy season getting some rain. So it's all kind of working out, and with the pattern the way it's set up is, a lot of this is been hanging out over the Pacific waters here. We're getting some rain coming in at time to time. Some of it's been a little on the heavier side, but not the big deluge of rain like we're getting in Florida. It's much different. This is not like a big atmospheric river pointed right at the coast here. It's these little rain chances, and right now it's heading up along the coast of Oregon, including around North Bend, where we've got some showers up there today, into Portland and down through Eugene. You'll have some rain chances there. As we watch this disturbance hang out over the Pacific and just send in moisture and little pieces of energy, we'll get some rain back into the Bay Area, down into Southern California, Santa Barbara, Malibu. We get some rain chances coming in through the end of the week here. And some of it heavy at times, especially along the coast. Snow levels will be pretty high, but we will get some snow here up at elevation here, watching that forest in the Sierra, especially as we get into Friday and then maybe even into Saturday. So that's what's happening over here on the West Coast. We're for now enjoying some kind of quiet times in between, but at some point, all of this activity in the West has to translate east.
Yeah, it's going to. It looks like going into next week, we're going to be much more active in the middle of the country, thanks in part to those systems rolling onto the West.
Yeah, it has to, right? I mean, at some point.
Yeah. Well, things are heating up, and we're not talking.
To kind of get blueberries in or even salad, can they be recycled?
We need some kind of clear messaging here.
Yes.
What can be and what can't be.
I think on Pattern today, they're going to break that down. But you can go to X and Threads, send us your comments on this, and you pics or video. Alaska. This has been a very snowy November. In fact, right now we are almost at our snowiest November on record. Not quite yet. We've had more than 37 inches. It's not record breaking, but it's awfully close. And it's about more than 3 times what we would typically get at this point in the season. The average is 5 inches at this point. We've had 37. So the number to beat is 38.8, set back in 1994. Seems like we will do that when you see the forecast here. We've got snowfall coming here into Anchorage. Higher spots will get even more. So we've got at least another 8 to 12 coming our way. And again, some of the higher spots will get even more than that all across the state of Alaska. Now, we've been in a snowy pattern where we had about a week straight of snowfall. Only one day off in that stretch. And so many of those days were actually daily records set with snowfall. And that's how we added up to so much. We had 8 inches, 9 inches. Then again, this week we had another 6 and 8 inches of snowfall. So with more to come here, you can see how it's going to push us into that record territory. Winter weather advisories are posted, as well as winter storm warnings up to the north. And yes, I know you think Alaska, you think it's snowy, but this is even a lot for us in November to be this snowy, to have this much in terms of amounts. It keeps going with these systems that have just been moving across the northern Pacific. The Gulf of Alaska has been a pretty stormy spot for storms to just kind of set up. And, some of them have been at least hanging out just off the coast of the lower 48 there from Washington and Oregon and really British Columbia, getting some of it. But Alaska has gotten all of it. And so that's really our big story, is that we keep in with the snowfall and the stormy pattern getting right into the end of the week. So we're talking snow in Alaska, and we're still talking tropics in the Caribbean, Greg. Gonna last.
Right. Enjoy it while you can, because I think there's signs that certainly parts of the United States, the lower 48, are going to get a lot colder next week, going into Thanksgiving. But normal, right? You got to expect that.
Yes. I think it's more surprising how warm we've been for how long. This whole week has been warm so far, know.
It's almost like, that's exactly right. The more extreme part of it is the warm side of it. The colder side of it is actually back to average.
Yeah. Now, rainfall, that's where we're going to pick up with the Florida rain. I just checked the radar around West Palm Beach. It has been a soaking morning, and I thought for sure we would have had more rain in that rain bucket by now.
Yeah, and it's going to be with us, I think, for the next couple of days. It's going to be kind of a rainy pattern for Florida and then eventually on into the Northeast. So we've got a whole lot to deal with. But first, I think Florida is the big story of the day.
So let's start with that. You know, it has been raining. Well, we had big rain last night with flooding. It's been raining all morning long. There's a stretch that goes across the entire state. I'll show you. And it hasn't added up to that much yet, but it's been very steady. And so roads are wet. I mean, everything is wet. The wind is blowing. So literally rain is getting into all the crevices. We've got 3 to 5 inches of rain, pretty widespread. Port St. Lucie southward, down through Miami and down even into the northern Keys, like around Key Largo. But there will be pockets of heavier amounts. Like we saw last night, you could get a 6-7 inch total, and where that happens, we are very concerned about flooding or flash flooding, and really with the chance of rain throughout the entire Sunshine State. We have some showers right now up around Pensacola, Panama City Beach here, a few showers lifting up. A lot of the biggest moisture is out over the Gulf of Mexico. You can see that right here. You see our low over here, and that's going to help kind of pull some of this moisture maybe north, so we're not done yet up around Apalachicola. But with the east wind and the flow that just kind of goes into that, we've been getting very persistent rain and some of it heavy at times here in South Florida. What's going to happen is that we see another low develop then just off the east coast of Florida, and that becomes another focus for heavy rainfall. It's windy as well here. I mean, look at the buoys gusting over 30, over 40 miles per hour. Actually, that one buoy sitting well offshore, and that's not making it onshore up here into the Florida Panhandle, but we have had persistent winds on the east coast of Florida thanks to that easterly flow coming on in, and so that's just been a part of our story for the last 24 hours. Winds gusting 20, 30 miles per hour plus. At times it's stronger than that. So when the secondary low develops over here, this is going to provide a focus for getting more rainfall, some bigger rainfall rates perhaps. Now, the thing about this low is there's a small chance that it may develop into something tropical, but it's moving to the northeast. And so, you know, the main concern is that while it's sitting here close to land, it'll exacerbate the rainfall, but it's not really a threat for landfall or anything like that. Just the fact that we have, 3 to 5 inches of rain plus in the forecast, that's what's going to cause our biggest flooding concerns. All right, so Greg, let's talk more about what else is happening as this goes up the coast. Down or not, it is never over until it's over. So here's a look at some of the most notorious late season storms. For you as we get into the holiday weekend, and rain for now is the biggest issue in Florida. Heavy rain again today.
A lot of it, and we had a lot last night. I mean, we were talking off camera. Some places in southeast Florida just last night had over 6 inches of rain. More is on the way. We're not done by any means, and not just for South Florida, the rest of the state as well.
Yeah, there's rain chances everywhere. Right now there's a swath of rain that stretches almost from Naples right over to West Palm Beach, and it's just a steady soaking rain. It's not the heaviest of rain, but it is just nonstop out there.
And goes even beyond Florida into parts of southern Alabama, Mississippi, even southern Georgia. Looks like it stops right around here, maybe I-20 across central Georgia. So Atlanta on northbound, probably not going to get out of the rain or not get any rain. The farther south you go, the more likely it is.
Yeah, it's like the atmosphere keeps pulling in a little dry air, kind of cutting it back on the northern side of things. That does make it easier for travel. We know 49.1 million are traveling by car for the Thanksgiving holiday. And I'm betting, definitely by Friday, maybe even tomorrow, you're going to start to see some of those out-of-state license plates show up on your roads.
Yeah, I mean, this is the busiest time of year. I mean, Thanksgiving, everything's all constricted and compacted into a couple of days. What does that mean for gas prices, and how is that going to affect our pocketbooks? In the West Coast, the gas prices on average nationally are above average, but once you head to the east and especially the southeast, it's actually relatively cheap.
$2.64 is what I paid yesterday. I feel pretty lucky. All right, if you're traveling by plane, 4.7 million. That's a big increase from last year, 6.6%, and it's the most since 2005. So expect a lot of crowds. Make sure you leave some extra time. Indeed. Now stay on top of the threats that might detour your travel plan. How'd that go? It did not go well. And I went to like 5 different places, and I even went to the dump that's apparently had a different place you could take electronics, but they didn't, and I just had to put it in the pile with everything else. Landfill. Yep, landfill. Well, Beckett says I need to wash your recycling before you put it in, and then I worry about the water use from that. See, it's complicated. Oh my gosh, now I'm stressed. Well, you can go to X and Threads, send us your comments, and we will share them with you on the show today. Let's get into the out there. We got some big events.